Does Oregon have a Dan Lanning problem? I think this is a fascinating discussion because Dan Lanning's a lot of hype. But I've been telling you all year that Oregon's a very flawed football team. And as much as I am surprised that they got blown out, I'm actually not. I think I look at Oregon, and I think there were a lot of factors at play. Number one, you can no longer allow your coordinators to continue to coach your football team when they are the head coach at other universities. We learned that at Ole Miss, and we learned that at Oregon. Tosh Lapoy and Will Stein, the two coordinators at Oregon. Tosh is going to Cal. Will Stein's going to Kentucky. Be on your way. You're elevating their replacements from within your staff. It was a mistake to have them stay with you because the team looked unprepared. That you got bulldozed. And yes, Indiana's very good. They're not that much better than Oregon. And my biggest fear, if I'm an Oregon fan, is that Dan Lanning doesn't have the goods to get the job done. That Penn State win was the high point of the season. That's where your season ended. And I think you have a lot of questions. Should Dante Moore go to the NFL? We're going to talk about that in a minute. Your single biggest question is, what are we going to do about Dan Lanning? Because you're not firing him. You're not even going to question him. You will see, if you follow this video and the subsequent upload from this video, you will see Oregon fans come into the comment section. You don't know ball. You don't know Dan Lanning. He's amazing. Oh, my God. You guys go ahead and shoot your shot 21 times a month thinking about Dan Lanning as your football coach. Knock yourself out. But here's the reality. Here's the truth. Dan Lanning is unproven. Dan Lanning has not shown you that he can win a national championship. The University of Oregon has not shown you that in men's basketball and football that they can win national championships. Oh, we've got Uncle Phil's money. That's cool. What has it bought you? Because it hasn't bought you wins, it hasn't bought you championships. And now it may have bought you a coach who isn't good enough as a head coach to win a national championship. So you got to watch what you pay for because you just might get it. What you have right now in Dan Lanning is a disappointment. And as harsh as you think that is, the reality is Mario Cristobal left Oregon and went to Miami, and he's going to play for a national championship. Dan Lanning chose not to leave Oregon, which, what did I tell you when he turned down Alabama and when he turned down LSU? Uh-oh. Why is Dan Lanning unwilling to go to a more competitive environment? Oh, well, Monty, his kids love it in Eugene. They don't. Nobody fucking likes Eugene. Eugene is like living in a paint drying scenario. Dan Lanning doesn't want the fire. Dan Lanning, in my opinion, is very comfortable with Uncle Phil's money. He likes all the free Jordans, as he should. But the truth about Dan Lanning is that's probably not the guy you want on your sideline when the game's in its biggest moment. Or, I don't know, when the game is the biggest moment. Because Dan Lanning has shown you he's not ready to win those games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the conversation around winning the biggest game of the year, like of your season, whatever that looks like, is definitely a conversation with Dan. I mean, I think, look, I think the bad from this game is yeah, you looked unprepared. You did not look ready for the moment. And I agree that the coordinator thing is definitely a conversation. You know, I would rather you just let those guys go to their new team and deal with it and get blown out rather than sitting here saying, well, they're going to help us and do that. And, you know, we're going to do our, like, it doesn't, I just don't think that that's the way anymore. And hopefully Dan agrees with that. Hopefully we see that adjustment at some point. However, you know, again, much like Marcus Freeman and other head coaches, I think this is the hard part about college football. Yes, it's disappointing you got your ass beat in this game, because you did get your ass beat in this game. It wasn't competitive and it wasn't close, and most of it was self-inflicted, honestly, because you threw the pick six to start the game. Then you had the fumble near the goal line with Dante Moore and the running back, and the broadcast wanted to say, "Oh, well, it's a young running back." I don't care who it is, dude. It's a huge game on the field. Got to be prepared. Not going to know. Simple as that. But I guess for me, the way I look at it is, you won, albeit two teams that were not as good as you. I had Oregon better than Texas Tech from the get, and you beat both of those teams. Obviously, JMU, that situation speaks for itself.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that not being able to, not being able to win the biggest game of the year is a hard pill to swallow in college football, because you're right. What are you going to do? Are you going to fire Dan Lanning? Well, of course not. Are you going to, are you going to sit here and put pressure on Dan Lanning? Probably not more pressure than he's putting on himself.
Honestly. You would hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Dan understands the expectation, and I think that the thing is, yeah, like, I guess I don't think that Oregon has a Dan Lanning problem per se. I think that Dan Lanning is a younger head coach who needs to figure out how to beef up his program so that we're not talking about, hey, well, like, they're way bigger than your offenses. Their D-line is miles bigger than your O-line, and vice versa. Like, they're bigger and stronger than you on both sides of the football, and that really hurt you in this game. You were down 14-0 before you even had your first sunflower seed in your mouth, and you never came back. It was over. Like, I literally said, we were texting about watching the game, it's over, dude. I didn't think it was over after the pick six to start the game. That's going to happen. We've seen that before. We've seen teams bounce back from that. It is what it is. That's going to happen. But as soon as you fumbled like that, as soon as you looked unprepared, as soon as you just weren't competitive on defense, I was like, yeah, dude, this team ain't here for it. And this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. And that, to me, is the indictment on Dan Lanning. And yes, the comparisons to James Franklin are earned. They're deserved. He is the James Franklin of the Big Ten right now. Like, you need to learn how to win the biggest games on the biggest stage. And, that skill is not reserved for everybody. That said, I also agree. It's also about what Indiana did to you. They're one of the best teams we've seen in college football in how long? We can't just ignore that fact. So, for the record, I don't think you have a Dan Lanning problem.
FTR.
Yeah, FTR. I don't think you have a Dan Lanning problem, but let's stop saying that this guy is a national championship contender every year. Let's stop with the, hey, we're like one of the best teams in college football every single year. I think you're one of the 12 best teams every year. I think you're a CFP contender just the same way Notre Dame is, just the same way Texas is. You're a team that can get into the CFP. You're not a team that's capable of winning a national championship right now. And that line is very definitive currently.
Yeah, I think Dan Lanning's a good coach. I don't think he's elite. I think he's no different than Marcus Freeman. I mean, I think this thing with coordinators is a big, big deal. This is now going to be normal. We are going to have coordinators who are going to get head coaching jobs and want to stay with their programs through a college football playoff run. You can't do it.
No.
You cannot do it.
You're either in or you're out, dude. There is no in between.
And Dan Lanning, again, the biggest problem I have is Dan Lanning was promoting from within. Both of his coordinator replacements are already on staff. Why are you keeping Tosh Lapoy? Why are you keeping Will Stein? Because you're a nice guy and you're friends. It was clearly a problem. They were not ready to play Indiana. There's no other way to describe the ass whooping that you took other than to say you were not prepared. And if you're not prepared for a college football playoff game, I have no idea what you're even looking at. How are you Oregon? And you are ill prepared to play Indiana. You've already seen them. You know what's coming. And you're not prepared to play Indiana.
I think that my point about them not being prepared is the self-inflicted mistakes. That's my point. If you had played your best game, if you had 0 turnovers, you played your best game and they were just better than you, I wouldn't have a problem, dude. You were prepared, you executed, they're better than you, they beat your ass. It is what it is. It's college football. That's going to happen. Like that's not an indictment on anybody. But the fact that you had, the fact that you started the game that way, you then turned it over, you never really had a chance. Like I
totally agree.
It's just not.
That's why
it's not good enough, dude.
The pick six, they were sitting on that throw.
Yeah.
They almost, I think it's strong to say they knew it was coming. That corner was not surprised by that.
Yeah, but this is why you don't throw. This is why you don't throw. It's just not a good. And I'm not, I don't, whose fault is it? I don't know, man. But this is why you don't throw a 7 yard comeback route, to the far side of the field on the first play of the game. You don't do that. Throw an in route, like throw a more reliable route. It's not a good play call. And yeah, why was the pick six available? Not because the throw was ass. It's because your receiver ran a crappy route, dude. Your receiver wasn't in position to come back and get the football because the corner won the route, because the corner was looking for it. And again, that's better coaching.
I'm going to continue to tell you, Dante Moore needs to come back to college.
Yeah.
You cannot, if you're Dante Moore, and I think he's got less than 20 college football starts, right around 20. That's you haven't shown us anything. And what we saw against Indiana was a guy that just wasn't ready for the heat. Right. And it's the old boxing analogy. Your quarterback has to be a fireman. Yeah. Right. Like you got to be ready to handle the heat. And Dante Moore's not ready to handle the heat. He needs to come back to college. And furthermore, Dan Lanning needs Dante Moore to stay in college.
Yeah, and he will. He will. I don't have any doubt about it. You're getting paid a lot of money. You've got a really good existence on that.
You don't have any doubt about.
No doubt about. I would be shocked if he went to the NFL, dude. I'd be shocked.
I think Dante Moore has a chance to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. That's as guaranteed as it gets. I think he'd have a chance to be the number 1 overall pick, depending on
you don't want to be that
interviews go.
You don't want to be that this year.
I don't even disagree with it. You never want to be that. But the reality is that's how you get paid. That's guaranteed money. And if you're Dante Moore, I don't think there's any doubt. You look at what Cam Ward's going through in Tennessee, or you look at anybody on the Jets. I understand it's problematic. I understand it's problematic if you go to the Raiders. But if you choose to go back to college, I think it's the right thing to do. But if you're Dante Moore, you're going to probably make more money in the NFL because you're a top 5 pick, so it's not going to be a money thing.
Making about $2.5 million in NIL right now.
I think there's a lot more money in the NFL for him, and it's so difficult as a quarterback to consistently be elite, and to be back-to-back years a top 5 pick is going to be really difficult, because you got to remember Arch Manning's coming out next year, after next season. So you're not going to be the number 1 overall pick. He should go to the NFL right now.
Yeah,
I'm probably on your side. I think Dante Moore probably goes back to school. Again, if you're under 20 starts in college football, it's not nearly enough.
Yeah. And the guy has his talent, to me, translates to the NFL really well. But he has to get better at reading defenses and understanding what's in front of him. And he did that against other teams that were not as good as Indiana. Again, I just want to make that clear. Indiana is an extremely good football team. One of the best football teams in the country, if not the best. That defense is experienced and knows how to disguise and played a great game, right? Give him credit. And Dante Moore is not yet at that level of quarterbacking to be able to handle that level of defense. Now, again, because I'm working hard to make sure we're clear on that, because I think it would be easy to just say, oh, well, Dan's a failure and Dante's and to hate on them. But there is a conversation about accountability, but there's also a conversation of who are you playing? So to me, the pick six, you can't throw that football, dude. You got to know better than that on the first play of the game.
You can't run into your running back on an RPO and fumble the ball.
Yeah. And again, I'm he doesn't have eyeballs in the back of his head. The running back's got to be better than that. But ultimately, you're the quarterback. It falls on you, and it falls on the OC, which ultimately falls on Dan. But I just sit here and I say, dude, if you're Dante Moore, your athleticism at that position makes it so that you can be a top-end college quarterback competing for national championships. And to me, this year specifically, I want nothing to do with being a top 5 pick as a quarterback in the NFL draft. I want nothing to do with it, because you've got a bunch of teams that are absolutely trash, worse than most years. And I think the joke about not wanting to be a Jet is not a joke anymore. Nobody wants to be a Jet. Nobody wants to be the number 1 overall pick and go to the Jets. You'd rather be, dude, if you're making the estimate is he's making $2.4 million in NIL right now at Oregon. Dude, if you're making $2.4 million in college, money's not really part of the equation in the sense that you need money. The guarantee,
not Eugene for $2.4 million. Like Eugene, you can build a castle.
Yeah. So I just think for Dante, it's more like, all right, like, what are my options here? Who would I likely go to? Do I like what that looks like, or should I stay in college? That's just the conversation. So Dan Lanning needs to get better at understanding what his team needs to be able to do to win football games. And my answer to that is simply you need to get bigger on the D line, and you need to be able to run the football more effectively, dude. You're asking Dante to cover up for so much of that. And I get it, injuries and X,
Yep.
Y, and Z, but every team has injuries, dude. Like, I'm sorry. I am not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, you lost the game because you had a young running back in there. Yeah, that's your problem, dude. You don't have depth at the position. So you're playing a guy who doesn't have enough reps and is super intimidated by the moment at running back.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
And the hard part is that when you start looking at the top producing quarterbacks in college football, Dante Moore's numbers probably don't get significantly better. I mean, the guy, if you start looking at Dante Moore, he's a top 15 performer in college football, 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 72%. How do you improve on that? How do you improve on that?
I mean, how do you improve on that? I mean, I think that I think that there's a lot of ways that they as an offense can improve on that. But I think, yeah, for individually, yeah, I mean, those are tough numbers to beat. But I just want to keep pointing out, if that's what he's doing now, what would he be doing a year from now? What would he be doing? Again, another season under his belt, another off season of preparation. I mean, we've seen the jump that a lot of guys can take. So again, it all comes down to personal preference, bro. Like, you want to go to the NFL and you want to be a backup somewhere for a year or two behind a starter, most likely, or worst case scenario, you get thrown in day one and you just have to deal with it the way, like Caleb Williams was, or whoever you want to look at. I mean, to me, that's worst case scenario. You don't want to do that as a quarterback coming in the league. You would prefer to sit behind somebody and learn and then get into it. That's what the best have done. That's the Patrick Mahomes blueprint. And I think that Dante's talented enough to be, to be a winner in the NFL, but he needs development just like any other guy.
Their schedule next year on the road: Oklahoma State, Illinois, Michigan State, Ohio State, and USC. Their schedule at home: Boise State, Portland State, Michigan, Nebraska, Northwestern, UCLA, Washington.
Yeah, should be undefeated at home. No question about it. Not even a conversation. But again,
outside of that trip to the shoe, you're not going to be tested on the road.
Is Dante Moore a good enough quarterback to overcome not being able to run the football against a Kyle Whittingham Michigan defense?
That's an interesting
Not
question.
sure. That's a damn good defense, dude. That's a tough defense. Like,
Phil Venzer, Raiders don't want more. You're crazy. The Super Conference Medal allows for top teams to go untested until it's go time. That's not a recipe for dominating success. Oregon did humiliate Texas Tech. Yeah, and I saw a lot of that over the weekend.
Yeah.
What did Oregon win? 23-0 over Texas Tech. What does that say about how far Texas Tech is from the elite teams in college football?
Yeah.
Pretty far, right? Oregon, which suffered a similar fate, no game for 3 weeks. I would agree with that.
So that's why I say, like, the nature of this question, and I think it's a fair question. Does Oregon have a Dan Lanning problem? I think it's a fair question. I think that depends on what your expectations are of Dan Lanning at this point in his tenure at Oregon. I mean, obviously,
What do you always say? What's the biggest concern about Oregon? Well, Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what Mario Cristobal's done. Mm-hmm. He left Eugene. He went to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
His recruiting's better. His coaching staff is better. The atmosphere down there is interesting. But he's been able to ascend. And I know that this really bothers Oregon folks. Eugene is the ceiling. You're going to get a lot of kids who don't want to go to Penn State because of College Park. You're going to get a lot of kids who don't want to go to Oregon because of Eugene. Right? At least at Washington, you're in a major metro like Seattle. Right? If you think of some of the secondary markets, you had better be elite. Oregon's got Nike, which really helps. But nothing overcomes Eugene, Oregon. You go to a visit on Eugene, Oregon, there's There's not a lot to see.
Mm.
There is not a lot to see. But what do you know if you're a upperclassman, if you're a Dante Moore even, who transfers to Oregon, you're going to be on national TV. Great. You're going to fly under the radar in public. Great. It's not expensive to live there. Great. But are you going to contend for a national championship? Are you going to play in big games? Probably not. Probably not.
No, you're going to play in big games. I disagree. You're not
going to contend for a national championship.
Yeah. I mean, losing in the semifinal of the CFP, that's.
But it's not even just losing. You got humiliated 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Humiliated. At least this year you won playoff game, right? Like you won a game of note.
No, you won 2 games, technically.
Well, the first one was a tune-up. You thoroughly dismantled Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Like you dominated Texas Tech. And again, I'll be interested to see what he does. My guess is I'm with you. I think he comes back. But Sean the Hammer, a member of the show for 15 months. Sean, appreciate you being here. Thank you. Thank you. The Raiders may trade the number 1 pick to acquire multiple draft picks. We need more than a QB. We need offensive line and defense. Well, you got to trade Max Crosby. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He doesn't want to be there.
What you need to do is find a head coach. That's what you need to do. And then you can talk about like what, the direction of the franchise. I mean, the Max Crosby thing, he's the face of your franchise. You need to trade him and you need to move along. Like it just is what it is. Take the pain pill and handle your business. But I think that
you need to hire the right coach
to
begin with. Or I'm sorry, Tom Brady needs to hire the right coach to begin with.
Yep, he does. No question about it. He does.
Would you? No. Bryce Martin, we had the defense right, but Tech's offense sputtered so bad that we had to go pay for an offense. And you're the guy that was ripping me about Baron Morton.
Yeah.
When are you going to tell me I was right about Baron Morton? I want my flowers, Bryce Martin, right now. Didn't we have I'll punch you in the face conversation about
Lubbock or Eugene?
Lubbock. Love it. You just have so much more money, and you have the accoutrements. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, bro, the facilities at Lubbock are, oh my God, the massage tables, Corinthian leather.
Yeah. Anyway, probably Lubbock, Texas. Texas Tech does it right. And I'm not saying that Eugene doesn't. But the other thing is Eugene might as well be in Alaska. You might as well be looking at Pootie's backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I mean, Eugene is out there, dude. It just, you live there. What are we talking? You when you live in Eugene, Oregon, you feel isolated.
Yeah, I think the thing with in FTR,
that means for your rectum.
I'm not 18 years old in today's world. It's hard for me to understand what that age of person is thinking right now in today's climate. But if it was me, yeah, I mean, obviously living in Eugene, it is different than anywhere else I've ever lived. It feels smaller. I have to say, like, the fans are very plugged in, but that makes sense. Oregon's the thing here, like it is a very interesting, different way of doing it. Like small place, huge brand, everyone's plugged into it. And basically you play football and it's your whole life. And for some kids, that's what they need. That's what they want. They want to go to a place that doesn't have all the distractions of a major metro. They don't want to be, they don't want to have, you know what I mean? Some kids want that, but I would say the majority of top end prospect, dude, is probably knocking the Oregon opportunity for Eugene rather than saying, well, it's cheap and there's no distraction. Like, I just hope people understand, if you've never been to Eugene, like the facts is that it's small and that there just isn't a lot of, accoutrements would be the word. Like it's just
great
very different.
Fun things to do.
Yeah. Like you don't have just run of the mill, like Cheesecake Factory's not in Eugene as an example.
5 Guys, Jake, but 5 Guys.
Yeah, like Jack in the Box is in Eugene, not There's 5 Guys.
Okay, what's the best food in Eugene?
I mean, if we're talking restaurant, I haven't been, but everybody says that Kennedy's Steakhouse is amazing. I haven't been there yet. I think, yeah, I'm not trying to be negative. There's not like a bona fide, this is the spot.
And I think it also matters. Like one of the things that I love about Seattle, it's an NFL town.
Mm-hmm.
All the buildings turn their lights on to match the Seahawks colors. This town is a buzz now because they have a home playoff game next weekend, and there's stuff to do here. There is stuff to do here. I think it matters. Big Blue Horses, if I'm a top QB, money aside, if I've got eligibility left, I'm not going to the Jets or the Raiders because my career is dead before it starts.
Agreed.
Yeah. Bryce Martin, I disagree. They play Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and SC. They are perennial playoff contenders, and kids want that exposure. I think there's some of that is true. I think there's a lot of it that is just not exposure. You can go to any of the top programs. You have to figure out the differentiators, right? You have to figure out what is this university going to offer me over that university? Because if you're good enough to go to Eugene and play for the Oregon Ducks, you can pretty much go play anywhere.
Agreed.
And if you're getting a phone call from Washington or Oregon, that's a really tough choice. But if you're getting a phone call from Michigan or Oregon, SC or Oregon, and a lot of it depends on where you're from. If you're an LA kid, you're going to answer the phone way quicker for USC, right? If you're a modern day high school kid. But I think there's a lot of circumstances, but in general, I think it's very difficult to say, yeah, come live in Eugene for 3 years. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult, in my opinion. Lubbock has similar issues as a location. It does. It feels like it's on an island in West Texas.
Yeah. One of my, just as this is not unique to Oregon, I guess, but like one of the things that's interesting about Eugene too is the airport situation. Very underrated dynamic in Eugene, meaning you have a regional airport in Eugene, which means that if you're like Oregon can't fly from Eugene to, Northwestern. They can't fly from Eugene. You can't fly out of Eugene on a 3+ hour flight. Let me put it that way. You need to go probably to Salt Lake or SeaTac, and then you will make that flight. Mainly because the airport's not big enough to handle the size of plane you need. So like, it's just it's a very like you either like it or you hate it. Like you either are good with the small town vibe and like you just want to focus on football and that's your thing, and you're not as big on like the college-y experience, if you will.
College-y.
Or you're like
collagen.
Yeah, or like you want to go to a school that's got a lot more nightlife, that's got a lot more stuff happening outside of football. So I just think it's just a stylistic preference thing.
Yeah, and I think again we're talking about 17-year-old kids. Like upperclassmen, that Dante Moore from UCLA to Eugene was a no-brainer, in my opinion. I told you he wasn't a playmaker. He needed to be, and he is nowhere on the level of Beck or Sam Levitt. I was on you because you wanted him to be A+, and he was a game manager. Texas Tech fans were constantly telling us how elite Baron Morton was. Constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So, midweek Coug. What's up, Coug? I would much rather live and play in Eugene than Lubbock. Well,
yeah, but you're a Washington State fan too. European W guy. Yeah.
Lubbock is a party town, but after 2-3 days, you will basically have been everywhere. And if you leave the city limits, it'll be like stepping on the moon for some of these guys. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But this is where we get into money and whatnot. So, Douglas, doesn't Oregon have a hard time with road games because of the travel? Travel at Oregon is arduous. That's why going to Epstein Island and winning this year was so huge.
Mm-hmm.
Half the teams I listed don't make the playoffs consistently, and Oregon at least makes it consistently, and they're regularly produced NFL guys. True.
And so that's part of the Dan Lanning conversation, and that's my point about Dan, is that I completely agree. Dan is still learning how to coach his team in a way that allows them to win the CFP semifinal game against whoever it's going to be on any given year. But you want,
I
you know,
agree.
you want a head coach that's going to have you in the CFP regularly. You want a head coach that puts guys in the NFL, that quite frankly dominates social media on a week to week basis in college football through no effort of his own.
But
Just
Jake, they
people.
don't do it for clicks at Oregon.
Yeah, I know.
They're not Colorado.
They don't do it for clicks. They do it for fumbles on the goal line. I get it. But the reality is that he's
Oh,
doing a
that's
good
funny.
job overall. It's just
Yes.
figuring out how to get over the hump in that big moment for the program. And for the record,
Program.
FTR, I do think he's going to figure that out. He will figure it out. That's why I like him, because he's going to sit there and he's going to say, yeah, you know what? This one's on me. Like, we got to recruit better. We got to have a bigger presence on the line of scrimmage, and we got to be able to run the football more, man. Like, that's the thing that stood out to me. You're more than happy to turn around and hand it off against Oklahoma State and just run it down their throat the whole game. But where was that against Indiana? Where was the commitment to RPO? Where was the commitment to, hey, we're not gonna run inside the box against Indiana. We're gonna get them out on the edge and use our speed. Where was that, bro? Because I didn't see any of that. I saw you try to roll out a gimmicky little pass it, dink and dunk 3-4 yard attempt and then take a shot down the field and be in 3rd and 8 all game. Like, that's not a game plan against Indiana. That's what I'm saying. It's a coaching problem, and they need to tighten that up.
Yeah, I don't know. Marcus is making a good point. Marcus is making a very good point. Like, maturity plays a big role in where a kid picks to go.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I think maturity is a big part of that. And I think if you want to focus on playing football, Eugene's probably a pretty good place to do that.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I think that that's why I say, like, they should do well in the portal. But I also think there's a really good, when it comes to recruiting, high school recruiting, you don't have a base to recruit from in Eugene. You have to go into somebody's backyard and win.
Yep.
And that's really tough to do, at least at a place like, because I think Penn State is one of the most geographically challenging recruiting spots in the country. I think Penn State, Arizona, and Eugene are 3 of the most difficult places to tell a kid from a big city to come play ball.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how far Tucson is from Phoenix. I don't think people get that. I think that people
it feels and how hot it is.
I mean, it's, what is it, a 90-minute drive or so, but it might as well be like 3 hours.
You're
like,
10 minutes from the Mexican border, dude. Like, it is uncomfortably close. And I think that's really tough.
Yeah.
That's a really tough ask. And so that's why I say, like, Penn State, Arizona, and Eugene are 3 of the toughest places to recruit to. And I think when you don't have a base, at least in Tucson, you can go up to Phoenix and have a base. At Texas Tech, you can recruit the state of Texas.
Salt Lake City, bro.
You have a huge base of talent in Salt Lake City.
And then there's USC, which has a massive, massive base there. And this is my, not to go on a whole diatribe about the Big 12 being ass lately, but this is my problem with teams in the Big 12 struggling in recruiting. You're in the middle of the country. It's not hard to get to you, and you still are just not putting your foot to the floor on recruiting and getting kids in.
DeBansa went to Provo, Utah as a
How?
black man.
Oh, that's right. Because what did they realize? Yeah, we got to get the checkbook out, man. Let's get the checkbook out and let's go full force forward and go get these guys. And we're not going to talk about the fact that Provo is almost an hour drive from Salt Lake City International. We're not going to talk about the fact that Provo, in Utah County is just a, with all due respect to Utah County, just a very different place. Like,
it is
not
it's the moon.
They're not bad people, but it is a different moon. Exactly.
It is the moon. Yeah.
It's different, bro.
Provo just feels different, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you, especially, and I think race in recruiting matters at BYU. It is, the state of Utah is very white. And at least in Salt Lake City, you have culture, you have diversity, you have a gay community and population. You have diversity. In Provo, you don't have that. You just don't. And I think it's, on top of that, you're signing an honor code. On top of that, there's no weed, there's no liquor, there's no.
That's what I'm saying. If you're at, if you're at Baylor or TCU or again, Tech. Tech's obviously doing a really good job right now, but some of these also rans in the Big 12, what is Iowa State going to do? Like
Lose.
what is right? Like what like why is it that we're over the weekend, and this definitely flew under the radar, I feel like, but you have UCF out here putting out a graphic talking about how there's no state income tax in Florida and we're happy to pay you. Dude, you're in Florida, bro. Like, do you not understand what you have access to in that
But it's
state in
Waco,
terms of
Texas.
talent?
Dude, how are you struggling to recruit to Baylor? How are you struggling? And I say this about the Big 12. How are you struggling to recruit in Fort Worth? I watch Landman. I know what Fort Worth looks like.
So with all due respect to that reference, because I agree, does Oregon really have a Dan Lanning problem? Or is it more just that they win enough and they're expecting at some point to win a natty? They don't have a Dan Lanning problem. What the problem is that other schools in other areas are not doing a good enough job. So guys like Dan Lanning not having what he needs to win a natty, that's why that's a problem, because it's out there and you should have got it. It's available. Go get it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is exactly my point. TCU and Baylor being in the heart of recruiting hubs.
Like, come on, dude. Like, what are we talking about?
You have coaching, and I love Sonny Dykes. He's got to go at TCU. I don't believe in Dave Aranda as a head coach, but they didn't fire him.
And you know what the shame of that is, too? Because the shame of it is, you brought up Utah basketball earlier in the show. The shame of it is that programs like TCU and Baylor and Kansas and K-State, dude, they're doing decently to really good in basketball. Like, they're actually productive, bro. Houston, perfect example.
Look at Texas Tech. Texas Tech is number one in college football, essentially, in the state of Texas. Texas Tech, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
They're one of the best programs in Texas. They're the best program in their conference. And they're one of the top 5. I think they'll fall in the top 10 this week, but they're one of the 10 best basketball teams in the country. In Lubbock,